In the heart of the Judean desert, a young man named Elijah was walking under the scorching sun. From an early age, he had heard of the Apostle Paul's heavenly visions and profound revelations about the third heaven. Driven by an insatiable thirst to understand what this meant for his life, he decided to set out on a spiritual journey. Elijah had always been a man of faith, but his soul cried out for something more. The words of Revelation 21:3 resonated in his heart. "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, for he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God." He longed for this closeness to the Creator, but he felt distant, as if his life was a constant battle between doubt and certainty. That night, exhausted, he fell asleep under the starry sky and had a vivid dream. A being of light called him by name, and in the blink of an eye, Elijah found himself in front of an indescribable scenario. Around him, a landscape of heavenly splendor unfolded. It was a place where the glory of God shone like the sun at dawn, and the peace that emanated from it was unlike anything he had ever experienced on earth. An angel came up and spoke in a small voice. "Elijah, this is the third heaven, the dwelling place of God's full presence. But know that it is not just a future destination. The kingdom of God is already among you and has implications for the lives of the faithful now." Elijah felt his heart burn when he heard those words. The angel continued, "Look at the spiritual struggle taking place in the heavens. There is a constant battle between the forces of light and darkness. Every prayer, every act of faith and obedience strengthens heaven's victory over evil." Before him, Elijah saw beings of shadow trying to invade that place of glory, but they were constantly repelled by the divine light. Suddenly, he realized that his own life was a reflection of this struggle. Their internal battles, their doubts, their fears were part of a much larger conflict. The angel pointed to a golden path and said, "Elijah, return to earth with this understanding. God desires to dwell with his people. Don't just wait for the future, as the reality of the third heaven can transform your life now. Seek God's presence daily, align with his plan, and experience victory." Elijah felt a renewed strength when he heard these words. When he woke up, he realized that he was still in the desert, but something inside him had changed. He now knew that he did not walk alone. The third heaven was not just a distant promise, but a reality that influences life at every moment. And with that certainty, he moved forward, ready to live in alignment with the kingdom of God, experiencing the victory that had already been granted to him. Upon return to his village, Elijah found a discouraged people, burdened by difficulties and doubts. Inspired by his vision, he began to share his experience, talking about the nearness of God and the impact of the third heaven on daily life. Many listened attentively, but others doubted. One night, while praying, Elijah felt the heavenly presence around him again. He understood that it was not enough to just tell his story. It was necessary to live this reality and demonstrate the truth of his vision through actions. He began to help those in need, to pray for the sick, and to teach about the spiritual battle that everyone faced, but that could be won with faith. Over time, the village began to change. People began to feel God's presence in their lives, and prayers became more fervent. Miracles began to happen. Illnesses were healed, families were restored, and a new spirit took over the community. However, the dark forces did not stand idly by. Elijah began to face opposition, not only from unbelievers, but from leaders who feared losing their influence over the people. He was accused of deception and brought before the village council. In front of the crowd, Elijah stood firm. "What I witnessed is not an empty dream," he declared. "God desires to dwell with us now. The third heaven is not an unattainable mystery, but an accessible reality for those who seek his presence. The spiritual battle is real, but the victory has already been granted to us." Suddenly, a strong wind swept through the square, and many felt an inexplicable peace. Some fell to their knees, weeping and praising God. Even the elders of the council were silent, unable to deny the evidence of divine power. From that day on, Elijah became a respected spiritual leader. He continued his mission, teaching that the third heaven was not just a future destination, but a life-changing reality in the present. His testimony spanned generations, inspiring many to seek God's presence and live in harmony with his eternal plan. But his mission was still far from over. One night, he received a vision of a great spiritual conflict unfolding over a distant city. The angel said to him, "Elijah, go to the city of Tarquish. There's a people who cry out for light, but are trapped in darkness. You will be the instrument to set them free." With this instruction, Elijah left for Tarquish. The city was a place of idolatry and deceit, where many lived under fear of false gods. When he began to preach, he was ridiculed and threatened, but he did not give up. He fasted and prayed intensely, asking for the third heaven to manifest itself in that place. The next night, a mysterious storm swept over the city, and a great light appeared in the sky. Many who doubted Elijah began to believe when they witnessed healings and deliverances happening in their own homes. Leaders, the spiritual people, tried to silence him, but it was too late. The power of God had been manifested, and the city was never the same again. Elijah spent years traveling, carrying the message of the third heaven throughout the region. Wherever I went, I saw the spiritual battle unfolding, but I also saw victory manifesting in those who chose to follow God. And so, the story of Elijah became an everlasting legacy. He understood that the revelation of the third heaven was not just a personal experience, but a call to transform the world and prepare the way for the fullness of the kingdom of God on earth.